and start with some introductions, if you couldn't mind. Andrew is with us today, and just to give him a chance to put faces to names a little bit more as we continue to move forward here, I'll call you out as I see you, if you wouldn't mind. And this is Chris. You probably know too much from me, but I am still here as your outgoing staff person. So Carol, I'll call on you next.
Sure. Well, good to see everyone. I'm Carol Zoff from the Minnesota Department of Transportation.
Thank you, Carol. And Lisa, welcome.
Hi, Lisa Havelka. I'm with Explore Minnesota State Office of Tourism. And let's see, Chris, I'm fulfilling that position on the exec committee, but am I non-voting, right?
No, you're voting.
I'm voting. Okay.
Yep. Yep. You're a voting member, very much so. We're glad to have you. And Anne, welcome.
Hi, I'm Ann Lewis. I am the at-large commissioner for the state of Minnesota, as well as on the MRPC national board as the immediate past pilot. And I just want to say to Andrew, pay attention to what Chris does, because every little detail gets taken care of. It's just amazing. She not only knew how to get the whole screen up from out there, but knew enough to have us all introduce ourselves so you would become familiar with us.
Absolutely.
Okay. Wow. Well, thank you, Anne.
Don't make you paranoid at all, Andrew.
Don't put too much into that. You know, it's always different when you're on your way out the door. So there you go. And John, if you'd want to say hi there in the room, I know you're sitting right across. But...
Did we do Carol? Did we?
We did.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh, geez. Yeah, we know each other, I think, already.
Okay.
I'm the vice
You're
chair
good.
of the state commission and the Metro Region Commissioner.
All employees are to remain in these areas.
I hate to tell you this, but I have to do an emergency evacuation to the elevator area.
Oh,
So it's storm alert, tornado warning.
Please.
Where are you?
Be safe.
I'm at CO. So I'll be back in a little bit. Carry on.
We'll carry on. Be safe, Carol. All right. And welcome, David. We see you coming in too. We were just doing some introductions. So not to put you on the spot, but I'll put you on the spot if you'd like to say hi and your name and which organization you're with.
Hi, David Kelleher, Minnesota Historical Society.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. And I think you have an agenda before you, and we took care of the first order of business here.
Andrew introduces himself real quick then too?
Oh, please, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Andrew George. I'm currently a research analyst with the Legislative Coordinating Commission, and I'm happy to be, learning kind of more about the MRPC as we transition a little bit over the rest of the year. And I'll be kind of stepping in incrementally growing in the workload with the MRPC as the year goes on. So, but I'm happy to meet you all, and yeah, excited to learn more.
Thanks, Andrew. Sorry, I assume everyone knew you already, but Megan too, down at the end of the table.
Hi, Megan Volke, Commission Administrative Assistant.
Yeah, and we're going to transition some of the note taking and stuff like that. The minutes is going to Megan. Megan said she's a whiz at notes. She likes it.
The whiz.
Minutes. So we're transitioning some things behind the scenes here too. And I'm Diane Henry Wagenstein with the LCC. So yeah, I'll still be here.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. And on our agenda today, we have a few kind of larger topics and then a few other things as well. Roadside Storybook was one of the big things to discuss with you today in terms of getting some recommendations on how to move forward with those needs and projects. We're thankful that David was able to jump on with us to talk a bit about that and the things that the Historical Society brings to the table in that regard. Also, we wanted to talk with you about regional meetings and elections coming up this fall. Because they haven't been done for a while, for one thing, this is now starting the new 4-year terms, but also the new changes that were made to the statute a couple of years ago and the first time through with those. So we have some draft information LCC does for your review. Anne suggested that we talk about America 250 a little bit and what plans for that might start to look like. I'm not sure how much or how little we want to take that on, or you want to take that on right now, but it's here. Also some staffing transition updates, other business as you wish, and then adjourn. We are set from 1 to 3 today, but I know David needs to leave by 2. Carol just had to jump out to evacuate briefly. So we just, roll with it as we're best able here and take it as it comes. So thank you again to all of you. And Roadside Storybook is first on our list. Carol is kind of the expert on that one, but I can start by drawing your attention to your packets. You have quite a bit of, most of the packet is Roadside Storybook, and you have really a history of what the project is all about, starting on page 2, more detail about that on page 3, a cost estimate on page 4 that was done several years ago on what it might take to handle some things that need to be done. Page 5, I believe, without my glasses, is a map showing you where the current panels that exist are located in the state, so you can get a feel for that. Page 6, I can talk to you about this right away because this is a good example. So one thing that we have to talk with you about is the fact that there are several sets of panels out there along the route, as that map on page 5 showed you. Some of them are not doing so well anymore. They're showing their age a bit, and they're having a bit of a hard time. And so we did get a complaint recently from Julie over at Explore Minnesota about the Welcome Center panels that are out there, specifically some in the St. Cloud area, saying they've been getting a lot of negative comments from travelers that the panels are not legible, that they're grown up with bushes around them. And so you can see that on page 6. And that note came to me and also to someone in MnDOT maintenance from District 3 in the St. Cloud area. So I mentioned to Julie that this was perfect, and we really appreciate this feedback because we'll be talking about it today with you. And then MnDOT also kindly offered that they would go over there, trim back some bushes, and try to do some power washing and cleaning of the panels to see if that would help. And they did send quite a few additional pictures, and we really appreciate that. Julie is always a really good partner with us on our map distribution and other Welcome Center things. So this was really good. I have not been able to run over there to take a look at this. I thought I would have by now, but I will do that to see the status. But this gives you a feel for what we're talking about and a really current example of what is the case with panels that are out there right now. Page 7, final page of your packet, is kind of the most recent set of discussion items and recommendations that we had when there was a team pulled together to look at this. And John remembers this. Kelly Bruns from DNR was involved. Carol was there, obviously. And really a team started to define what a project might look like and next steps that would be needed if the commission were to go forward with something like this whole Roadside Storybook project. So I'll just start there. You can see that next steps were that a lead agency or organization would be needed, someone to serve as project manager and fiscal agent, identified prior to seeking funding, because this would be kind of a large and expensive undertaking and not something that the existing operating budget can handle if it's all to be done at the same time. Then a need to begin identifying funding options. The team at that time said they would start to do a content review of 2 examples to develop guidelines for an update process. When we talk more about going back to the first page, there are several panels out there. There are more that are not yet done. 16 counties worth of panels never were placed as of yet, but the content is there, but needs to be revised. So that could be one step of a project. So yeah, so I'm going to back up. That was the quick view of what you have in your packet. If you go back to page 2, there's a lot of good information, and Carol, I'm sure we'll talk more about that. But the blue box at the bottom of the page is really a good summary to start with. So right now there are 63 interpretive panels and 32 frames at 22 locations along the river from the headwaters to the Iowa border. It tells you what a field analysis of those existing panels showed, and this was back in 2021. So we might, have some different conditions already. But at that time, they assessed the 31, and this was from actual visual review. 31 were in good condition but needed some cleaning. 30 needed repair, 18 needed replacement. And then in addition to that, a full Roadside Storybook project would develop 16 more counties worth of panels and place those, and potentially some new panels in tribal communities. And so, Carol, I'm just kind of going through what's in the packet to kind of show where we've been, talked a bit about the example from the St. Cloud area of what some of the things are looking like out there, and now landed on the blue box at the bottom of page 2, kind of as a quick summary of where we're at. So there's a lot here, and it's a question at this point of what to do and how to proceed from the commission standpoint. Carol and I have had other comments about these panels over the years. I believe it's Lake City, Carol, if I'm right, where some actually were removed because they just were, past any kind of legibility or decent representation for the community or for the Great River Road. So the ones that are out there that need repair, really they are the visible question that's out there first. What happens to them? And now that Carol's back, I'll toss her a question here. Is that what you would see as the first main question, Carol, or what are your thoughts on
Yes,
what we need?
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, you described it well. And if you look on page 4 of the second sheet, it describes the funding for each of these two. So I think that really factors into it. We do have the panels down in Lake City were actually replaced during another historic restoration project by MnDOT. So that one, and that was the story of water skiing. But it's just a continual process of making new, and then it deteriorates over time, and then making new. But secondarily, there's the whole storytelling, which has also changed over time, from when we first described it. And then in the corridor management planning activities and in the report, it does describe an additional strategy to improve our Native American representation on the panels. There was one concept about developing, similar to each of the counties gets its set of panels, that we would do one for White Earth, Leech Lake, and Prairie Island. But in addition to that, there was also consideration for how do we, maybe reflect Native American names of things, like the flora and fauna that we describe in that panel, or the hydro and geo and the placemaking stories, etc. And that was definitely supported by the public input. Don't you recall that, Chris? I mean, people really were very, very interested in learning more about how Native Americans related to that land. So in order to do that, I think if you look at the costs, a lot of it really is in developing the content. So even though we could go ahead and just refabricate based on the files that we have here, we could refabricate what we put out before, but I guess I would recommend that the commission consider, is it time to update the content itself? The format is nice. I mean, the concept about having a consistent visual look, that people then, when they're driving at 55, they can see those aqua signs and they know that they're going to learn more about the river and things to see and do there. The idea that we cross promote, if you like American, bald eagles here in Wabasha, you should go up to the Chippewa National Forest, because their forest management really helped recover the population in Minnesota. And then again, but I think as far as where to start, redeveloping those that exist in the field, I think is a critical path, because it's our branding too. That's how people see it. And if it's deteriorated, they're thinking that we're not caring for those resources. And perhaps if we, because the whole effort is a lot. And with each of these stories, there's a lot of engagement involved. And it takes time. So maybe the commission consider rehabilitating or redeveloping those panels that exist out there now, and then do a second phase of building out the rest of the system if the commission feels like they want to do that at that time. it is, yeah, I guess that's what I would recommend is a two-phased approach. And then perhaps it's three phases based on, 16 counties is a lot too. And if we were to incorporate new content for each of the tribal nations, that's a lot of content.
Carol, would you like me to show what a set of the panels looks like out along the road? I mean, I think you can
So we-
tell that from the packet, but did that come up, everybody?
Yep.
Yes, so this is in the Winona area. I pulled this one because you can see there are often three, a set of the panels, two-sided. And so as you're driving by on the road, as Carol said, you can visually identify these pretty easily. It is that consistent look and format most places. Itasca State Park was a bit of an exception with a different color frame to align with things at the Mary Gibbs Visitor Center. But this is what they look like out there. So I can stop sharing that. I have some examples of content I could share with you too, but questions become, and you can see in the notes on page 7, when that committee was meeting, they also talked about considering posting the content online as a flip book or a similar format to get the interpretive content out there while funds are sought for panel installations. And so they were thinking about additional ways to get the content out there. It's so awesome to have these along the roadway, but then you have issues of maintaining them over time, the cost of putting them there, who's going to do that, all of that good stuff, which is not impossible, but is, an additional set of considerations.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And a question I might toss to you is, again, when we, including within the last month, hear some negative comments back, do you leave those deteriorated panels out there until there's funding to replace them, or do they need to come down and just be down?
Just like on the history of it, and I'm sorry, I mean, we've been talking about the panels for a number of years now, and I don't remember, and so the majority of these panels were put in place before I started working with the MRPC. Was it an original grant that was given with facilitating it? How was the original amount of I remember like we replaced or put in like I want to say like 4 or 8 panels when I started working with the MRPC, but that's about it so far. So I'm curious about the original panels, for the cost of the original panels, what was behind that initiative, and then the content, how was the content developed for those storybooks then too?
So I can take that one. It's been a series of grants and appropriations, primarily grants, though often when the Scenic Byway program first was initiated in 1992, MnDOT and MHS and the DNR applied for grants from the National Scenic Byways program. And some of those, I think, were some of the first, but it is possible that because the Great River Road predates the Scenic Byway program, that some of the initial ones that you can like around, oh shoot, it's not Leech Lake. Big
Cass
Sandy.
Lake?
Big Sandy
Sandy.
has
Oh, Big
one.
Sandy.
And why Big Sandy? Because Andy Golfus lived off of Big Sandy. He had a lake place, so they had one. But it does have a great river.
There's your rationale.
There's a lock and dam there and all the rest. So, but so some of them may have actually predated the byway program, but a lot of them were developed. So MnDOT would apply for a grant to improve, say, the Lake City concourse or another by the Reed's Landing overlook. And then they would develop and install a panel because it is on the Great River Road and they got funding for it that also funded other site development. So that's, I think, Diane, how it started. And at the time, MnDOT had 2 graphic artists in my office. And so we had and we were also building up our state's byway program. So other byways got interpretive panels as well during those eras. We got a grant, oh gosh, I don't remember if it was like 2004 or something, to do 4 counties. And that was the first one after the 2000 corridor management plan that said, you really should do an interpretive plan. And that's where then the concept in that interpretive plan, which was like 2002, established we should do a cadence of 6 rather than one-off so that people actually see it. They get to know more about the place, and then we can cross promote different places to see and do along the river. And so that was the first 4. I think we maybe got 4.5 counties worth out there. And then we've had a few other funding sources that have developed additional panels as well. We did enter into a partnership with the Minnesota Association of Surveyors and redevelop the set of 6 down at the Iowa border. We incorporated some additional context in those to point to survey marker at the Iowa border that told the story of surveying. So and then when we did the recent corridor management plan, while they're not Great River Road interpretive panels, we did develop and install, I think 7 different locations because there's 6 host communities. One of them is Minra. And so we had one up in Dayton and then a set down in Hastings under the 61 bridge that talk about the Mississippi River Trail, but it's developed with the same look and feel of the Great River Road interpretive panels.
Oh,
And
those should be in good shape.
Okay. So 2000 was the earliest, was it 2000? Did I hear that right, or am I wrong on that?
No, that was those were the first ones that used this roadside story concept where we would develop content for each of the 21 counties along the Great River Road. And it's a set of 6 panels. We have draft content, but they all get fleshed out. We also redeveloped a set developed a set when we restored the St. Cloud Historic Wayside Marker, and we placed that on the Sand Prairie SNA and learning area. And we were able to do that as mitigation for placing the historic marker because we had to move it. There were nefarious activities where it was. MnDOT wanted that site closed and had closed it. So we moved the whole marker down to the Sand Prairie. And as mitigation for that, we created 6 of 3 standing 6 panels that talked about the flora and fauna. And really, we also talked about how license plates were made in the prison, how the prison was a quarry.
So this was done very piecemeal, is what it sounds like. We're trying to approach it right now is how do we approach this as a single project, maybe, but it was done piecemeal. So we're not trying to replicate the way it was done before.
Yeah.
And so to me, I see us at, this is going to take identifying a lead organization or lead agency is going to take going for a funding source for all or part of it, which is going to take a couple of years at least. So the initial question, I think, which you started, Chris, is what do we do in the interim? We can come up with a plan, but in the interim, what's our triage in a way? And I think you're right. I think if the sign is gone beyond repair, it should come down. If it can be cleaned and repaired, if that's all it takes, we should see who can do that and get it done. If the content, like we just talked about natural resource signs, those should be good overall content wise, not a lot of change, but if there's a cultural piece in there that is offensive in some way, then we might have to think about what we do with those kinds. Do we just leave it in temporarily and say, hey, this is identified as a temporary one until we get the funding to replace it, and then it's on the high priority list for replacement? Is that the kind of strategy we're looking for?
I think it is a big question. You're right, John. And overall, where would you as a committee advise going with this? Would you like to still keep that physical presence of panels out there at all? I'm just going to be devil's advocate. When you do, you will always have the maintenance issues. You will always have an agency or agencies or some people that are responsible for the maintenance. Who is that? What partners are they? Is that possible? Is that what travelers want anymore? I mean, there's no question of the visible presence as you're driving by those, and I think they're great. But does the commission and its partners have the capacity to do something like that in its full-blown form when you look at all, 16 additional counties in addition to the ones you have out there? It's awesome. I'd love it, just as a traveler, but it's a lot. And it's challenging to know if it can be done.
Yeah. And also the maintenance in the future then too.
Yep.
On it,
So,
right?
And yep.
Yeah. To me, this kind of project that I would have done in my other life, my previous life, I would have started with an overall comprehensive, we're going to redo the whole thing. Only because if you do it over time, then you have a decrease, you have some that are not in good shape, that are going out. You don't have it all looking. You're never catching up. You just never catch up. And the other thing I would say is that graphically, yeah, they look okay, but they really look dated to me. As my eye is like, this is 1970s artwork. And I would love to see us do something else, but I'm going to shift gears here and go to a conversation we had in the Culture and Heritage meeting this week. And what I see happening myself in interpretation in other countries, in sites in New York State, everywhere I go now is and then what we discussed in Culture and Heritage is the new turn to QR codes to tell the stories and to do branding along the road for the Great River Road in our signage and make it a more easy to maintain kind of physical presence, but also that QR code content can be more easily changed and more quickly converted when times change and when stories change or when they need updating. And I think both from these costs, I assume, are for that current model, that current size and actual what do they call it when you make it, when you actually make it. But if we did something that was very remarkably noticeable from the road, we'd still want it to be that way, but it would not have to undergo the kind of cleaning. The QR code could be there, and we could be telling video stories. We could be attaching people to video things, and we might be able to reduce the cost, but I'm more concerned that we have more uniformity, and then we don't have the deterioration. We can avoid the deterioration in certain sectors over time and make it more comprehensively noticeable, but also keep our stories more relevant more quickly and more economically. Does that make any sense? David, what do you see happening in the world of interpretation that you're not dealing so much with outside, but you're in the world of interpretation?
Yeah, we're doing a lot of outside stuff. We are figuring that our visitors come at all hours and not when we're open. We don't want to disappoint people who show up on a Monday, have absolutely nothing for them. So we are doing a fair bit of that work. On the QR code question, the misperception or fallacy could be that it's easy and it takes no maintenance, but it does take some level of back-end maintenance. It's not the fabrication, construction, installation stuff that can be expensive, but the good news and bad news is QR codes come and go, uh, in popularity, but yeah, it's flexible. But the back end stuff is sometimes a challenge to keep up with. While I'm talking and have the mic here, a question. I know this is jumping way ahead to the end, but is there a funding source identified, and is that driving the conversation at all, or are we just trying to be planful and come up with a plan in order to seek out funding sources?
Yes, on that second part. We don't have, there is not, you don't
Okay.
have a funding source. No.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Looking at the notes on page 7 of the packet, that seems like a good template for moving forward. I think there was a plan in place to keep moving forward, and everyone gets busy and gets involved with stuff, and other distractions happen. But that seems like a good template for moving forward, which would be assembling a team who can focus on this a little bit, doing an inventory assessment and deciding what the criteria is for removal, and then starting to plan for the future and um, decide whether it's a full scale replacement. And I understand what you're saying about the graphics being dated, but um, in some cases something may be better than nothing. But plan for maybe some new graphics with replacement, and using construction concepts, pre-design, design, and construction, where do a master plan for what you're going to do, and then make the plan, and then take the opportunities when the funding does come forward. So, and I don't want to volunteer my colleagues for a huge project, but I would volunteer a meeting or two with some of the folks who have put together some of our interpretive signage in the past couple of years. And they're out of our exhibits team, and they've done a couple of projects around our
David,
historic things.
David, can you also speak to, I know in the Park Service, with signage, the signage technology has come a long ways in terms of cost of fabrication and durability of outdoor materials.
I don't think I can speak directly to that, but a couple of my colleagues who have been working with this stuff for the last couple of years would be able to address that in a lot of detail.
Yeah, the ones that are most deteriorated are fiberglass embedded, or they're green board on the inside with a coating on the outside, and those freeze and thaw and crack. And the fiberglass embedded just absorb moisture and look horrible. 10 years later, go figure, we all look a little different, but we need some moisturizer. But we did start using a very good product. At the time, it was called Folia. It was out of Canada. Now there are other manufacturers of it, one down in Texas that our site development unit has been using for interpretive panels as well. So we can see what their most current specs are.
And a very
And I'll
old,
just-
a very
Okay.
old, but expensive but durable model is the St. Anthony Falls Heritage Trail, and that was designed to anticipate potential vandalism in a busy urban area, and those were done with sort of a vandal-proof enamel surface. Those probably need some replacement due to content updates and content emissions. So that group is also embarking on some revisions to those signs.
I'm
But
gonna
that's
just
sort of
call
the
out,
Cadillac of durability.
from the tourism, the visitor, the traveler side of things, do you have anything that just is jumping to mind? If not, that's okay, but another perspective from what you guys are seeing would be helpful too.
Julie would be a great resource for us to talk to. Just for example here, coming out of the St. Cloud Visitor Center, those would be our staff that are physically staffing those locations would know, just exactly what the visitors are complaining about or complimenting about. My thought around it too is it's great that if you visibly see the panels that you may be more interested in stopping to learn more. But I'm also wondering if we do update and change any content, if we're going to continue as is with the panels. I hear you, David, about the QR codes, but could we consider adding QR codes to the content and do some kind of tagging so we know if we're actually getting any action to our website or to wherever we're directing them to help us gauge where some of these are and how many visitors. Like at our welcome centers, we have staff, so we have tracking mechanisms. But in some of the places where these interpretive panels are, it's just really kind of a guess. So would that help us give, for future perspective, where we put more of our emphasis on prioritizing? And that would be my other point here too, is it's prioritized as far as like the good, the bad, and the ugly, but should we also take another lens to this and look at it in prioritizing where the most trafficked ones and how they're looking? Should we prioritize another way?
Those are great points, Lisa. I was thinking too, if we do add QR codes, an idea that has been around since QR codes started, we could promote like the Drive Month too, because you can change those up. So you could have a contest. I mean, you could make it much more interactive using that technology. And I love the idea of measurement.
Let me ask another question. We are the owners of these signs. The Parkway Commission owns these signs. Who owns these signs?
DOT.
I think it depends. I don't know if there's one overall owner of them. Carol, do you know?
Yeah, I think it's more like where they're located are with at partner, commission member sites. A lot of them are at DOT waysides or visitor centers, but we have a whole set at Itasca State Park. We have some, I believe, at some MHS sites. But I gotta think about that. I mean, we have it all GPSed as far as where they are. So we can give you that. But as far as who owns them, it's a reciprocal relationship. It's like when we put the Great River Road signs on a county or city street, the county or city, it really is their right of way. So it's their sign. But between the DOT managing the byway and the commission sometimes helping with the funding for it, and even last time when we re-signed the whole route, the DNR paid, they help with the match. So it's, as far as who owns it, John, it depends on the site, I believe. And they didn't sign any documents to say we received these and own them, but we got permission because we have to do environmental study when we place a sign in the ground. And so they're definitely, we don't place the signs anywhere that someone isn't accepting them. Like I say, the DNR, I guess, could say they own those signs up at Sand Prairie, but I will tell you this, we had a straight line wind come and knock them down, and MnDOT paid to reset them up.
Yeah, so what I'm thinking about is the next step is how we go forward. And this is just brainstorming. Is do we say, hey, we're going to redo these signs. We're going to put them up. We're going to give you the content. We might do some QR code content. But once we hand them off to you, you're responsible for taking care of them, keeping them clean, keeping them clear of vegetation. And the Corps does that all the time with like flood control projects and other things. We'll build it, but once we build it and give it to you, it's yours. And then it takes us out of the permanent having to come back and fix it mode. We could come back and help with content maybe down the road, but the sign management is out of our hands. Maybe that's a condition of how we move forward.
Well, I think that is how it actually works right now. Whoever manages that site, they've been doing the day-to-day cleaning and such. It's just some of them are actually deteriorated. As far as how they manage their vegetation on their site, it varies. I think a lot of people are just squished with too much to do in vegetation management. They do their best. But sometimes they do grow up and, obscure a sign or make it so you can't stand next to it. But like, for instance, at the Sibley Pioneer Church Memorial down in off of Highway 13, we have a set of 6 that are focused on Dakota County. And the Sibley House, which is now, it was managed by Fort Snelling, but now is it Dakota County? I think manages that. Yep. So again, even the sites change hands in management. So nothing is permanent with anything, except for we have to take care of these things. So in the basic premise is that the day-to-day maintenance is by the site owner. But if we have to do a capital campaign and replace things, then the commission would be the advocate to make that happen.
I have another question along those lines, and I think it's a Diane question. Is there anything prohibiting us from getting a sponsor for these signs?
Like a corporate sponsor?
Could be a corporate or a nonprofit sponsor.
I mean, I should check into it. I don't know.
I know that on the right of way, you can't have advertisement.
Mhm.
Well, I'm going to pull what used to be a PBS kind of hat on this and say, there are corporate sponsors of PBS and they are not allowed to advertise.
Mhm.
So it's just the name and the
Mhm.
logo in the small print. But there are entities that might find this a valuable thing to contribute to and to get their names, particularly in front of drivers, motorists in the state of Minnesota.
Yeah.
And that would mostly likely be a corporate sponsor, but I just wondered about the rules about that.
Yeah. I don't know to tell you. We'd have to check into it, but I remember having that discussion at one point because of the map.
Maps, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I think we were okay with
the name and the logo.
Right. The name and the logo and that.
Yeah.
And it seems very similar to that, but I just wanted to raise that as a possible way to get funding.
Yeah. Good point.
David.
You're muted.
The statute that governs the MRPC has a provision that allows the commission to accept gifts and grants. So I just put that in the chat, and it's subdivision 3A, commission may accept gifts of money, property, or services, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So
okay.
That there may be other things, like Carol mentioned, prohibitions on, rights of way or federal, but that basic threshold of the commission accepting grants from others is there.
Thank you.
Good point. Good point.
I think there would be some rules and regs around that, most likely when we've talked about this before for the map or for the annual meeting. There would likely be some, I'm thinking, Diane, more definition around that. Can just anyone who would want to sponsor that, regardless of what the organization is, would that be allowed? Does it have to be in keeping with some rules of the legislature and things like that?
Yeah. So what Chris is mentioning, there's administrative statute under chapter 16 that we follow a lot on some things, although a legislative branch, and then the legislature itself has a set of statutes under chapter 3. So we'd have to check into things along those lines. Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out the sequence of things here in part, and this conversation is starting to develop that. I mean, one is we have an immediate term issue of bad signs that we need to deal with. And if we have to figure out what our role is in terms of are we going to redo these signs or not? The question is before us is, should we redo these signs as they are, or should we not redo them as they are and go to simple QR codes? Those decisions, or I actually do like the idea of physical panels out there, because that does get people to come in and stop. You can have additional content with a QR code, or maybe instead of 3 panels, you have 1, and you put the basic content and then everything else is QR code. So we reduce the number of panels from 3 to 1 or 2, which could reduce the cost, and then do a hybrid QR code. Get the bait to come them and stop and check it out, and then they can look deeper as they want. Going for funding is when we started to talk about in part who can help pay for these, but who's going to be the agency that actually, organization that actually accepts the money? That's one of the biggest questions to me. Who are the candidates out there to even do that? Historical Society, MnDOT, everybody will want to do their own sign, but not someone else's.
So the LCC has been a fiscal agent before when we're talking like the corridor management plan. The National Parks was kind enough to do the match, because remember we were lacking in the match content. That was a grant through working with MnDOT. I mean, I'm just not saying that we could do it. That's something my director would have to say. Because I mean, there's also some additional federal requirements on audit that need to perform. That was different resources too, but it potentially could perhaps be the MRPC too.
And if we went to the Minnesota Historical Society, the legacy grants, and got a big legacy grant to do this, and you agreed to be the fiscal agent, could we include in that request for money, hire a person to manage it?
A project manager.
Yes, and I think that's in the budget, I think. Isn't it?
David's shaking his head.
Well, I'm just
working with, they work with arts and culture, grants the historical society.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think of money, fiscal agent, and then person to do the work, or people to do the work. So we can figure that part out.
Yeah. And also, like you said, who's the holder, who's the owner of the signs? Because
well, there'd be some kind of agreement that handed off the signs, and there would be, I mean, Lisa said, let's go to the ones that had the most traffic. I would just say, let's go to the ones where the people are most likely to take care of the sign we give them as well. If they got a good track record of taking care of their sign, let's keep up with them. If they don't seem that interested, then we think maybe we don't put one back there. And Chris, I don't know where you want to go with this. How far you want to brainstorm this to a certain point, and then just say, like David said,
I think
we need to get the band back together.
You're getting there. Yeah, get the band back together. Exactly. We'll get t-shirts and all that. No, we really won't. But yeah, I think some of the detail then is if you are recommending as an executive committee that a team be called together to start back with the notes on the last page of the packet, that's certainly something that can happen next. I think and do you also want to toss them the question about the deteriorated panels too? Or do you have recommendations on that? David's saying yes, just toss it all over to the team for more detail. But what I'm hearing you all say then is you think this is worthy of calling a team together at this time to continue the discussion and not put it back on a shelf.
Read back to, I'm just kind of curious too. I'm sorry, it's a kind of a point from the back, but the original story, the actual content itself, do you know, Carol, how that was developed or who developed it? Because I mean, part of this is that content then too, and how that would be created then as well, right?
I have every file. Thank you, Carol. Every file for every sign on my computer.
Oh, I do too. And so I think you do too, Diane. At the time that we were having these conversations, MnDOT provided us with all of the information. So we've got all that content to start from.
I'm just kind of curious how that was taken originally. Like, Carol, was MnDOT the original drafter of the content? Okay.
Yeah, we were, like I said, we had graphic artists and we had our communications, our cultural resource unit. probably our government relations, now that we have one. We didn't have one before, for tribal engagement. And then we met, like when we were developing the interpretive plan that developed the basic content for all 21 counties and identified potential locations. This is in addition to what had been done previously. So this came out of that was about 2002. We worked with, whoever we were telling the story about, we worked with them. And then like MHS, National Park Service, DNR were typically at the table too, just to, help refine it and make sure that it was appropriate. And yet today we now know that we have a different lens too. So, but it was primarily all of those were developed through MnDOT.
And with consulting help, right, Carol, there were teams of people involved.
We had the interpretive plan was led by Craig Churchward at SEH at the time. And we had multiple, Bill Gardner was with the U of M Tourism Center. He did the surveys, and we had like 3 other consultants working on it. So that one was big to develop the interpretive plan and then the basic content for that roadside storybook. But before that, we kind of went through the same process. We just were doing it more site specific when we had funding to improve a site.
David, I see your hand.
I'll volunteer to join the team, and I'll volunteer a couple of my colleagues to, at the risk to my life and limb, I'll volunteer them for a meeting or two, but I don't want to commit them to more than a meeting or two. I'm sure they would be happy to join for a short amount of time for sharing what they've learned.
Okay.
So I think there's agreement we should take this next. One of the things I'd like to see somehow is a priority list of how we go do this. Like issue number 1 is this. If we decide this on issue number 1, we're not going to do this again. We're done. What we're going to do, issue number 2 is, we want to do it, but we want to do it with more signs or QR codes or less signs. And that takes us to the next step. And we will get to, okay, now we want to go ahead with this. Here's how we're going to do it. Now we want to go for the money. How do we go for the money? And we is there a priority list of boxes we check to move from one box to the next? Be good to have something like that to go into this with.
For the to give the
ad hoc
recommendation
team.
for the ad hoc.
Yeah, the ad hoc team.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure Megan's got it all down and figured out through AI note-taking system. Or just ask the AI message-taking system.
Well, because that really is the question, and you're all taking the first step here of designating a team to go forward. So you are deciding that it's worth the time and energy of the commission to prioritize this. Right. Because you do all have limited time, energy, resources. This is a big, big thing. And so, if this committee recommends that there be a team pulled together, that's kind of step 1, John, of what you're
check that box
saying there, I think. Mm-hmm.
Now we can move to step 1. Step 2.
Mm-hmm. Is this going to the whole commission then too? This recommendation from the executive group go to the commission for decision in August and as well? Because again, the resources of the MRPC, there's only finite resources. So this being something that's a priority out there, is that priority over this, doing this, it just, as a group itself, understanding like there's, member resources, talent resources, and all those other things.
I think you're right, Diane, and then others at the table there too may or may not be willing to volunteer or know of others who would volunteer. This is a core group today, but you have others there at the table. And you're absolutely right about the resources, including time and energy.
Given, I don't know, when I was working on this, it was the majority of my position description was supporting the Parkway Commission. At this time, Peter has a lot of other design responsibilities too.
Mhm.
What we might want to consider is hiring a consultant to manage the whole project. And then we have an advisory committee made up of the commission themselves, so that we hire someone to do all the engagement. And, it's not, I say all, we're all gonna, everybody will be involved or has an opportunity to contribute. But it might be something that we look for dollars to hire a consultant to develop the plan first and then have a fabrication as a secondary outcome. It takes 2 years, I bet, to redevelop this content, confirm with those current site owners whether they want to carry this forward. One of the things about removing them is they're all bolted into the concrete. So we don't want to create a tripping hazard or make their site look like something's
Oh, boy.
removed. So it's just something to consider that, in the time, and this again, it's like with our interpretive centers, it's an opportunity to engage with people and our partners that are telling the story and hosting these travelers. I mean, really, each of these sites is a hosting site. So it is, and not all of them have necessarily, like, we were talking at Reed's Landing, no one's there. But Andrea Weber from our site development unit here at MnDOT, she manages that site, and our District 6, they manage it day to day. So, I mean, I think it could be an opportunity for us really to enrich our relationships out there too. But back to the hiring a consultant, the more I think about it, I would recommend that we put that into the pot of possibilities.
I think that,
I would
mean,
second that.
I would hold off on that, to be honest. Because first we have to have our ad hoc committee meetings that says we even want to go forward with this.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Yeah.
So because I'm thinking about the question of what do we bring to the full commission? And we don't need a vote in this executive committee to bring this to the full commission. It'll just be an update in there. If we went ahead and say we want to spend commission money on this now, then we would want to have a vote on it and bring that to the commission for a vote. But we're not at that point yet. So Carol, I agree. Let's have the ad hoc committee include the idea of a consultant to get this organized once we know what direction we're going with it.
I think as Diane's point was taken, it would still be, in my mind, a good idea to bring it to the commission before starting. Because Jen, although it's not asking for cash out of the budget, it's asking for time and resources of the commission members. That's your valuable capital. So we want to make sure that everybody wants to do that with other things that are coming up. And, we ask a lot of things of all the members. Last fall, the annual meeting's a good example. You couldn't be doing 6 other things while you were doing that annual meeting. It's too much to ask. So just need to make sure, like David said, he's risking his life and limb there, getting a couple of other MHS folks to join in. We need to make sure that you're all ready for them and to use it in that way. So I think it's a good plan, but maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to run it past the full commission before running headlong into calling committee meetings.
So this is about, we could probably have a conversation about prioritizing tasks for the going forward. And is this one of those tasks we want to prioritize? That works for me. Yeah.
Okay. It still then leaves out there the issue of these panels that are in sorry shape and they'll just continue to be there. So that's the only thing that keeps coming to mind for me is they're still out there. They are still reflecting on the sites where they're placed. They're still reflecting on your logo. So
I would move, we have those taken down. And I know that it could create a tripping hazard, but whoever takes them down has to cut them off at the surface and get rid of the tripping hazard, or put yellow tape all around them or something. But I don't think they should stay out there in their condition. And we talked to I guess it'd be actually a communications plan of who do we need to reach out to for which ones and how do we get that done?
You did say earlier, though, all of you, as I'm recalling, that you thought the committee should take on that question too. So that's certainly fine, but that might be their first question.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, we went round and round on that. If it were simple, this would all be done by now. So thank you for wrangling through it all again. It's a really big project, so it's important to put the thought into it. Anything else on that right now? Then if I'm hearing agreement, we'll go ahead and bring that to the full commission in August with the recommendation to pull a team together. David volunteered himself and a couple of colleagues. Anyone else want to jump on and volunteer right now?
I'd be happy to
Yeah.
work on that, Chris. I think
I will too.
Okay, John,
I'm
okay.
I'm hoping some other things happen that would make that really possible for me to do. So I'm hoping
Gotcha.
I'd like to
Gotcha.
do that.
And Carol, would you or Peter be able to, just someone with the history there?
Yeah, I can, just because I've been so deeply involved, I will, but I think I might invite Peter to participate in those meetings as well, if we can.
Yep, that's perfect. Okay, so we'll talk about that with the commission then. Thank you. Thank you for all of that. We'll go ahead then and move on to regional meetings and elections if you're ready.
Yep.
And just to start on that, the timeline and general plan for those is that you have 3 regions due for those regional meetings and elections this fall. It is Lake Itasca to Grand Rapids to Brainerd, and Brainerd to Elk River, your 3 northernmost regions. And we would, as the statute is written, need to have those regional commissioners fully in place by the end of the calendar year, December 31st. They are now 4-year terms. That was one of the statute changes. The other change is that the commission now becomes the appointing authority. In the past, the regional committees or regional stakeholders just went ahead and elected those regional commissioners, and so they were the appointing authority. Then, though, it's a bit of a unwieldy appointing authority in a way that if you have any way you need to go back to that appointing authority, it's difficult to call back that exact group of people that participated on that day at that time. So the commission then playing that role makes that a little bit more feasible if you need to make any changes, anything like that going forward. So the regional meetings and elections would need to happen late October, early November, something like that, so that the recommendations could come back to the full commission at their mid-November meeting. So all 3 existing regional commissioners have indicated to me that they would at this point intend to run again. So we know that there is interest in that unless something has changed. And then we would be reaching out to them to schedule those meetings and work through the process as has been done in the past. Because there is a change now in place, and maybe a need for some more definition of what this new process looks like, LCC kindly put together a draft process policy for review, and that was sent out to you yesterday. And I can share it on screen, Diane, if you like, or if you wanted to, or if you'd like to say a few words, Diane and Andrew, about what we're looking at here and why.
So, I can just.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Share it?
So, yeah, sure, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great. So in conversation about the transition, we were kind of thinking and the changes that have happened to the statute. Like, we're trying to think of other commissions that we work with, or other councils that we work with, their process, and is there other things, potential pitfalls that we should look out for, like questions on the process? So we kind of did a bit of a draft to this, a little bit similar to the rules of executive committee, the rules that the MRPC has in place, and it would be potentially something that would be voted upon and adopted by the MRPC or changed or whatever by the the commission itself then. So we just started drafting it, and this is just a draft.
Okay.
So not a big issue. If you have complaints, if you have criticism, not complaints, but criticism or changes or something like that, I'll say that I did this and I have no ego on this type of thing. So you can do what you guys want to. And it was kind of like the 11th hour quick, trying to do this type of thing then too. So I started out with the statute itself. I mean, we could just, to simplify it, we could just hyperlink to the statute or just reference the statute. But for the heck of it, for the start of it, I put the relevant parts of the statute. As Chris mentioned, it's, there's citizen members with the regions, it talks about the 4-year terms, and talks about the appointment being that, there are 5 citizen committees established by the members of that are appointed, so the appointments happens by the commission itself. The elections are with the citizen committees then too. The citizen committees are, you probably know this, but they're kind of ad hoc type of groups. That's Chris is maintained with as a part of the MRPC, a pretty detailed content list of stakeholders, interested parties, that type of thing. And so developed by regions, right, Chris, on it?
Yep, correct. And we have those, and I've started to pull those lists already. They're maintained in constant contact. They are lists that are by region. They vary a little bit by region, so each makeup is not exactly the same by committee. So they're not really committees, they're regional stakeholder lists is what they really are, regional lists of partners that then are all invited and come together for the purposes of meetings and elections periodically. So you have community tourism offices, state parks, cities, counties, all kinds of different partners involved in those committees. So yes, thanks, Diane.
Yeah.
So that helps me because I was trying to figure out citizens committee. I was.
That's how the statute's drafted,
I
but
was
yeah.
trying to figure out what that was, but Chris, you just defined, and I'm thinking that's kind of what it was, but thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah. And we were also trying to think of pitfalls of, like, if you had a member who wasn't kind of went rogue or, wasn't a responsible member, now before, how's that removal process? And you have to go back to that citizen committee on that process, which was really unwieldy on it. So that's also why some of the changes to this, it puts more power into the commission itself, which we thought was appropriate with the statute change as well, with the appointment.
Or a removal situation, that really should be on the commission.
Yeah, I agree. But the way the old statute was, you couldn't. It went
remember.
back to this 15 point whatever, and that was, the removal was different on it. So that's why the statute and that part of the thought process on having this then too. It might be good in case you have something kind of weird and thinking about these type of transition type of things that we haven't had this so much of an issue before in the past, I guess a little bit, but
We've had it. We've had
Okay.
it. We have had it.
Yeah, that's true. So this is why. And then we kind of, so honestly, I was a little bit more detailed, and this is probably too detailed in this explanation then too. So I kind of went into the weeds a little bit, but that was my thought process when we started to do it. So we could do less of a process, and you're gonna see on this one, Chris and I kind of talked about some notes, and Andrew kind of, we reviewed it and kind of talked about things, but we kind of left it up to some point and wanted to get input from the committee itself. So.
And thanks,
yes.
Diane. I'll just jump in and say too, a lot of what you see that Diane wrote up is a good representation of what has been happening. It's just not necessarily written down anywhere.
Mhm.
And now it would be, so that there is some definition on records. So it might be a question too of how much detail you want in terms of an approved commission process versus what's an internal kind of staff guideline sheet that isn't a commission policy, but it's something that is used as a guideline. That's kind of one of the questions for you. How much detail would you want? Again, what you see here is largely what has happened, and then with some additional detail because of the new process. So
Right.
Diane and others, back to you.
Yeah. So the first is just, about the timing of the meeting and that type of thing then too. Then we also talk about the application form. And Chris, you were mentioning it was unwieldy on the form itself, is it like, does it normally filled out by?
Yep,
people?
yep, but it's an application form, and I think if you'd want to switch over to a bio summary, you could do that with just basic sections taken from the application. That would be easier to fill out and just provide a separate document that, required certain contact information, something about experience, and something about interest. I think you could just do much of the form in a different way and maybe in that bio format. Mhm.
And then I was also thinking about public release and private data, that type of thing, and have I can't remember the term now, Tennyson agreement where it's a release type of thing on it then too. We also talked about like the regional elections held in a hybrid location or virtually. I mean, it's been helpful with it to be virtually, like during COVID, that we could still go on with the process, or if there was a winter and snowstorm, that type of thing, that was really helpful. Ideally, it'd be nice to be hybrid, and that depends on like if there's a facility out there to have it hybrid, a partner out there. But that's improved over the years too. A lot of people have this technology where it wasn't as much as it before. But we could cut out a lot of this. We could just say, interested parties need to fill out election, interested individuals contact, are required to fill out election or application form. And then cut to something more brief then too. The kind of the meat of this is more about the election process itself. Yeah, please. So it's, we kind of thought about like, does it need to be, what happens, how are you going to handle the vote process itself? And what has happened in the past is Chris, you've taken some virtual ballots ahead of the meeting itself, right?
Yeah, so we put candidate information out to the stakeholder and partner list, inviting everyone to the meeting and to come and vote there. But if they're unable to attend, could submit a vote by email to me by a certain date and time prior to the meeting.
And then we thought, like, if we have more than one candidate, how is that going to happen? Chris was mentioning in her comment that, if folks have voted virtually before the meeting, and you probably should say you're able to take votes by proxy then too, or by mail or virtually email as a part of the rules then too. But if the you had a second candidate, a second ballot, I should say, that would kind of nullify that those proxy votes out there. So so it's like, how do you if you have a tie, I was kind of wondering what the executive committee had some sort of answer on that one, or should there be a second ballot? Should it just be a first ballot and winner take all type of thing? Should the citizen committees forward two individuals recommended to the commission for consideration, or should it just be one, or something like that?
So we could leave it up to the so-called citizen commission to vet the candidates ahead of time and forward one to us, rather than having them forward.
Yeah,
I would prefer that, because then it's truly, they've picked the person they want to put forward and submitted them, and then the vote seems like it'll be unanimous, right?
Probably more likely, yeah. I mean, but it would be up to the commission too. I mean, if the commission, and a part of that then too, if the commission rejects the candidate for some other reason, doesn't appoint what the regional citizen have forwarded, what do you do in that
We're in trouble
situation?
because we just stiff-armed a local. I mean, I wouldn't want to have to be in that position. So.
No, but things happen. And so, I mean, it could technically happen that something happens and that elected person needs to withdraw before the commission is able to personally, I'll speak personally right now, things happen in life that change your plans sometimes too. So there are.
Go back and ask for another person, right?
From the citizen group. I mean, we could put that in the rules. I might be going into the weeds right now on this one. So we just wanted to kind of touch base with this committee to see what you guys thought about a process.
Well, and there's also a PD that we wrote for the commissioners in general, and then for the regional commissioners who would be these elected people. So there are performance standards that in the position description that
that's right.
If performance became an issue, you'd go to that, not necessarily the election process.
We could also include in these rules is how the process, if there is not performance, it then goes to the commission the removal type of process then too.
Yeah, that'd be a removal process. The thing that where I could see is a change, going to a 4-year term, someone may, after 2 years, just want to have something will come up in their life and they're moving, they got to change, they don't have time for it anymore.
Mhm.
And we could, in a 4-year term, we could lose someone midterm.
That's happened already with 2-year terms, and that has worked fine in the past. We have then done special elections at that time, sometimes without a full meeting, just a special election to fill that seat until the next due date, so to speak. So there is precedence for that. It would just again need to come back to the full commission now. So it's kind of like, what does that process look like? Because that's the new piece. How does that mechanism work of the regional group recommending to the commission? Is it one person? Is it more than one? What if there's a tie? Those kinds of things. Or do you see how it rolls the first 3 times this fall? This is new for you.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily something we have to do right before these upcoming regional elections. I mean, we haven't had it before, but we're just something we were noodling over.
I guess, I mean, if the commission, if the regional citizens commission wants to forward 2 people and put it on us to decide, I mean, that's their choice, I guess.
It should be. I think it should be.
Yeah. Be great if we had that many people interested in
Mhm.
position of 2 people.
Should they only have 2 candidates? I mean, limit it to 2?
I don't think we limit it. They just Canada, so let me be clear.
Mhm.
Are they voting to forward candidates on their end? If they're voting on their end, they should come up with a number of candidates and vote. And once they've voted, they forward the person who won the votes, right?
I think so. I think the question here is, what if there's a tie? I mean, it's kind of,
At the
yeah.
citizen committee level, then they forward both in a tie.
Mhm.
And if there's 5 people running, they just forward the 2 that tied.
So would it
Because
be a majority? That's the candidates forwarded
Right.
is.
I think Chris mentioned something about rank choice, or somebody did.
Mhm.
Do we go back?
Well, because if you go to a second ballot and you allow advance votes virtually, if you go to a second ballot at the meeting, you're taking
Yes.
out all those people that voted
That
virtually
already
prior
voted.
to the meeting. They don't get a second ballot then. So
We have
if
to
you
hold a
ask
meeting.
them if you ask them in advance, okay, send us your voting rank choice list, well, then you could go into a straight rank choice voting situation if you wanted to get that far in. Otherwise, like John is saying, the regional group can forward their first choice, or if there's a tie, they forward both names, and then the commission decides. And then you're not in that second ballots or ranked choice, or, because it can get pretty involved when it might not need to.
Right.
Well, and it's also like people that know each other that are in the room. It
Yes.
tends to be maybe 24 people max, often about a
That's
dozen
max.
people. They all know each other. I think it would be awkward to ask them to vote again, to tell you the truth. If on the odd, result, we've never had a tie before, but if we were, just send it to the commission and you need to make the decision anyway.
Okay.
I mean, because in the room, that would be awkward, I think.
That would be awkward. That would be really awkward.
Well, I wouldn't, if I had to take a second vote, I would make it 2 days later or something and get those people who voted by email or to vote again. It doesn't have to be in that meeting. If it's a tie in the in-person meeting, then you have to have you have to convene again later, would be a choice, or you have them forward the 2 people to us and the commission makes a decision, so.
I'd say start by forwarding the 2 people. I'm just thinking of carrying this out moving forward. And because then you would have to reconvene, because this way, and Diane can help with this with public meeting requirements, if you take votes in advance, you can announce at the public meeting how many votes you received. And it's kind of technically part of that process. If you start doing separate voting emails after, you sort of I don't know,
nullify that.
and
Yeah.
it doesn't
that's,
matter.
that's why I brought it up. I wanted to understand.
That's a mess.
Mhm.
So is there, one other question I had is, like, there's these different organizations out there that form the Citizens Committee. Is there an official designation of who their representative is? Do they have
Nope.
to, you said proxy, so when I hear proxy, I hear, okay, this person is a proxy for this organization.
Nope.
But they, whoever shows up in that role, we take.
Yep. Yep.
Mhm. I think when we
That's
had
how
it
it's been.
Okay,
when we did it virtually that one time, it was pure virtual. We did like during the meeting itself, a Survey Monkey. To send out an email, or we could have people direct people to send that want to vote virtually right there. We can have them send it by email or something like that.
but it's clear that each organization gets one vote versus multiple votes.
I don't know that we've even,
Individual.
I'm not sure we have enforced it to that degree either, John. People who attend, if we had more than one person from Army Corps of Engineers sites, they were from different sites in that example, but they were able to vote. So if you want to put more of those details in here, this would be a good time to do it.
Well, I'm just wondering, I mean, if one organization shows up and they got a candidate from their organization, they have 5 people there.
Yeah.
Um,
And that to me is the more likely scenario. That
Mhm.
really is the more likely scenario.
But how would you handle that?
I would like to see,
The reality is these are citizen commissioners, and all of the people in the communities along the river are the constituents of that member, that representative.
True.
And even if they aren't on our list, they are voting members of that, as long as they have a driver's license and tell us they live in that, just so they haven't come in from another district. I mean, that would be my only, they really do have to be legitimately from the district, and not somewhere else. But if they're just members of the district, I think that's the criteria. I mean, that's the way I understand who you're representing.
so this isn't about the organizations voting, it's about the people who show up voting.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to
Yeah,
get clear.
I think so.
That's
Okay.
why. And I think the voting has been by ballot
Yeah.
before, like they just write down a name on a piece of paper.
I mean, I got voted in, I
Uh-huh.
had 8 votes. I
Uh-huh.
couldn't tell you where the 8 came from.
We've had ballots, and I will go back to the virtual, or the straight virtual versus hybrid situation also is a staffing issue. And so as you look at that, I do understand the value of being out there in person, and it's a big deal. But also you need to be able to send people out there for a couple, several days. And
I know.
will we be able to do that?
Yeah.
So that's why it says virtual or hybrid, because we want to make sure there's the greatest participation. But, is MnDOT able to send people for multiple days, as had happened at times in the past, or is LCC able to do that? I can say I don't know that I'm going to be able to commit to do that this particular fall. So coverage is part of that question too.
Not realistic.
Well, I mean, these are all good, all these answers help me understand
Yeah.
the new process better.
Mhm.
I'm good.
Okay. Well, I think what I'll do, if the group is okay with it, make this less of a procedural type of document, more of a streamlined.
What
My,
about this one?
oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, I said X months. I didn't know how many
How
months.
many months do we want to clarify that for, help Diane with that? Bullet point number 2 on the second page. Chris, what do you think? How far ahead should this process begin?
You could also go with prior to starting the regional meeting planning or something like that. Again, it depends on what this turns into. If it is a full commission approved process, that if you deviate from it, you need to go back and ask first. That
Good point.
is something that would concern me, that, again, things happen, and if you're a week or 2 weeks late, would you have to go back to the commission to modify a process?
Right. So maybe a part of this being this streamlining this, making it more of just a pure procedural, not like a detailed, here's how we do this, that, and the other thing, but more of like the rules
Mhm.
looking back, more making it rules on it.
Yeah.
With the voting, we talked about with the virtual votes, you know, that type of thing, and streamlining it then, and then adding about, this, how does it's gonna go to the commission would appoint then too. If there's no appointment, the commission refuses to appoint, does it go back to the citizen commission? It's gonna be rare if this is gonna happen, I imagine. It'd be a rare occasion, but it could. And then, should we also then talk about the removal process on there, or just not?
Let me just, not to make everybody seasick here, but let me just, myself, arrow back up.
Uh-huh. thinking-
C, at the bottom of the page, successor members shall be appointed by the same appointing authorities. Members may be reappointed. Any vacancy shall be filled by the appointing authority. It doesn't really go into specifics of any removals or resignations, but it does talk about how members are appointed. So you could choose to develop something for removal process, or you could, that might be for you, Diana, and Michelle, and others too. Does it say enough here, the way it is, to
Now thinking
interpret
about
as you
that,
need to?
yeah, I don't remember the statute off the top of my head, but it's like I think it's 15.56. No, it's not. I was just thinking the one that delegates like citizen members, public members, different commissions. It does state, when we were originally looking about how do you remove a member, it talks about that, and it talks about the appointing authority. I think we just refer to that statute. Then we don't have to get into details. I think that's how it goes. So if the group is okay with this, I'll streamline this, make it a little bit more seamless on it. And we can circulate it out to the group and, for comments, then this executive group on it. Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just looking at, we have a removal provision in Friends of the Mississippi Rivers bylaws. And I'm just looking at any director may be removed from office at any time by a vote of 2/3 of the other directors, with or without cause. And so the question would it be is, do we need a provision like that to officially remove someone or not?
So any of the public members, any of the different councils or commissions, they're always based upon, and I don't remember the statute off the top of my head, but it's in chapter 15 someplace. I'm paging through now to see if I can find it.
If there's a removal.
There's a removal
Okay,
provision.
let's just go with that. Yep, okay.
Yeah.
And it goes back to the appointing authority, so it'd be going back to the commission.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
Okay.
Yep.
Good.
Okay. I'm cool.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. It's heavy stuff, as Diane said, in the weeds, but it will be helpful moving forward with this new statute information. So thanks for hanging with us on all that good stuff. And America 250 is next. And I think, Anne, you made that request. Is there something in particular you were hoping for from the committee today? Or would you like me to talk about what the national office is doing? Where did you want to go on that?
Here's where I'm having a real big senior moment. I don't know why I requested that. The only thing I can think of is that we are doing 250, and suggestions are being recruited or requested of things to do on the Great River Road by the national office. I don't know if we are. This goes back to another question, really, and that is, our Drive the Great River Road. Well, it's the wrong year. This is not the 250 year. Next year is the 250 year. So we can consider that that time as the 250 promotion for the state of Minnesota for the Great River Road could be around that. I can't recall why I had that on there.
That makes sense, though,
Sorry
Anne,
about
if you
that.
wanted to forward that as an idea for the Drive Month theme in 2026, that's good to keep on the radar.
I think we could start brainstorming before then. And to your point is, it's 250 things to do on the Great River Road. What is Minnesota going to submit to be among those 250?
Right. And that's, I assume we've already submitted some things, but I don't really know.
It's at the Culture and Heritage Committee meeting this week, you know, we talked about this a little bit, and Suzanne put up there's already a promotional page on PC's website with America 250 on it. And we had talked about, you know, the idea of Tom Lee Park becoming a new interpretive center in Memphis. That's a really difficult thing to go ahead with right now, because it's not an interpretive center. It's a phenomenal, one of the most phenomenal parks on the entire Mississippi River. But, you know, we could promote them as one of the 250 best things to do on the Great River
That's
Road.
what I was thinking in
Yeah.
that particular meeting. But have we submitted any ideas of things to do on the Great River Road for the 250?
I've sent it out, I believe, to
I
our
bet you did.
partners along the route, and we will be having a meeting of interpretive centers coming up August 6th. That would be one of the things on the agenda for them to encourage them to be submitting. So I haven't submitted like on behalf of Minnesota, but I have started sharing it with partners and would plan to continue doing
That's
that.
the right way to do it. That is the right way to do
Yeah.
it. Thank you.
So this weekend, and I've already had to deal with the hassles around it, getting to a board meeting last night near Harriet Island, is that there's a huge concert on Harriet Island this weekend. It's becoming a big deal. They got some big, well-known names coming in to play at this concert. I don't know how many tens of thousands of people attend this, but that could be an event that it doesn't have to be that event, but it could be, hey, I'm here for this great big concert along the Mississippi River.
But engaging our partners along the river in those communities and with that idea is serving two purposes. It's giving us material to submit to the greater 10 state effort, but it's also engaging them in this whole idea of planning for the 250. So those communities are getting I can't tell you how many people, well, not so much recently, but 3 months ago, people said, I didn't know we were having a 250. I didn't know. Is anybody talking about this? I had one person say to me, why isn't somebody talking about the 250 and America's 250? And I'm like, well, I'm talking about it. I don't know why you're not talking about it, but people they're not thinking about it. So we're providing a service by getting that message out to them and asking them to think about it now.
That's what it is to me. It's about, for the Parkway Commission, it's not us doing things. It's about us promoting people doing things to get our image out there, to get our presence out there more.
Right.
And the concert may be the wrong thing because it's not about America 250, but maybe we might want to think about, are we promoting things that are tied to the story of America being 250 years old? So
There's a set of categories there on that national
Yeah.
form. I won't take the time to pull it up right now,
No,
but
you're right.
there's several categories they've defined.
Okay,
Mhm.
I'm good on that. We can talk more about it.
Yep.
Okay.
I want to get to the next one.
Other
Okay,
business?
well, Diane, Andrew, I'll toss that over to you if you wanted to talk staffing a little bit.
Just real quick before I just found the statute that I was referring to with the removal, I'm sorry, but it goes to the removals go back to the appointing authority, which would be the commission. And it could be, it's at the pleasure of the appointing authority that the removal happens. But it also talks about like if they're missing three consecutive meetings, that type of thing then too. So
That's what I
Right,
remember
curious.
was the three meeting attendance thing.
right,
That's
right.
what I remembered.
Yep, sorry.
No, good. No, that's good to know.
So, so we're starting to talk about with the MRPC staffing transition then too. So Andrew's been meeting with Chris and Chris has been really helpful. And so Chris has kind of given us, depending on how things go, with her, and other considerations, but something toward the end of this year, of it, dealing with this then too. Just on a budget level for the MRPC, we're not, a couple different things before I give it to Andrew and Chris to talk. But, we've talked to Odyssey about like, after, changing, we'd amend the agreement that we have with Odyssey, the Odyssey group. That's a group that actually Chris is with, that we'd change it from having a monthly retainer with Odyssey to having a hourly type of thing at the request of the MRPC or LCC, actually at the request of LCC. So we just wanted to make sure, like, if there was something what we'd ask for Chris's time we'd have that. And it's something we'll probably keep in place until June 30th of 2026. And we've talked to the Odyssey group, Bryce with the Odyssey group, and he's been agreeable to that then too. So, but we're gonna wait in the amendment to see where things kind of end up. And that amendment will be super simple to do then as well. Just on the budget side of things. So we will be, assessing some of Andrew's time to the MRPC. But it won't be until after the retainer is off for the Odyssey group. So we don't want to overhit the MRPC, and we want to be conscious of that type of thing. So, we'd be looking at like the percentage of his time and stuff like that, but be something which would be comparable that has been in the past with the Odyssey group then too on it. So budget wise, I just wanted to let the group know how this will be affected that then too. So I'll leave maybe to Andrew talk about and Chris talk about the transition, what you're doing in right now.
Yeah, for sure. I think state that Chris and I have been meeting with Fran on occasion, just to transition various or just knowledge that I think Chris has obviously really culminated over a long time over to me, and we'll be getting more materials, just like the physical stuff that I know Chris has with her that we at the LCC maybe don't have. We'll be getting that over the next few months. But just a lot right now, just me soaking up knowledge, I think is kind of where we're at. And I'm excited to learn more, obviously. And yeah. I think probably just for Lisa, who I may have not met on last month, was I worked at the LCC for about 2 years now, and was at the Senate before that. So kind of just been at the legislature for a little bit now, and I worked with Senator Housley before on another task force, and so I'm excited to keep working with her. So yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at, I think, with my process of transition. And if Chris has anything else to say.
Yeah, no, we have been doing some meetings, and I'm trying to prepare information too. Diane asked me about a calendar, so I'm working on that about when various things happen during the year. I mean, there's a lot of variation to that, but kind of a cycle of things. So putting that together, also a series of documents, which may be more than Andrew or Diane want to know, but on different types of topics and getting it on paper, in case I just need to hand it over to that it's there and it's prepared. And it's things like, we talked about the website and who handles things and who are the contacts and what is the contract? What are the passwords? How is the account set up? How does the account get renewed? All of those types of, kind of boring day-to-day things, but trying to have that ready to hand over. And as Diane said, we're looking at when to modify the current contract so that I wouldn't be on the full monthly retainer that we have been, but go on to an as-needed kind of consulting set of hours as LCC would call on me in case something comes up. I've been thinking the end of the calendar year, December 31st. I'm kind of looking at, as Andrew said, transitioning back up until that time into more of a support role as Andrew continues to step forward. And things like today, I will most likely be available from afar with the other things that I have going on. Not that I won't be able to make any in-person meetings, but am doing my best to keep juggling with some things here while continuing to work with the commission's transition. So I appreciate the flexibility on that. And, over time here in the coming months, you will see less of me and hear less of me because I talk a lot too. So, you'll hear less of that going forward. But that's kind of what we're working on. And some things may or may not happen as they had past years. Drive month might be a little more scaled back this year, for example, since we're still kind of working on what the actual theme will be. We'll get it out there, but some things might not be quite as developed as you've been used to seeing them in the
Yeah.
past.
And so, this is something that was the executive director, Michelle Urick, thought that this is something that, with what Chris, and this is nothing we've asked of Chris to do. Chris came to us and said,
Yeah.
like she was looking for retirement and transitioning herself and her time,
Yep.
with the demands and stuff like that, because we'd love to have Chris on, but, but we're also looking at resources that we have within the LCC. So we do have like folks who work with redistricting and GIS, and do we have like some things that have been done outside might be able to be internal. So we're trying to look at that type of thing then too. I just want to also point out that Megan's taking a bigger role then too, working with the commission and helping and assist then too. We traditionally have usually analysts that's like Andrew and a commission assistant that's working with our commissions. This is a way different commission than any of our other commissions. It's much more highly involved on it. Our other commissions are, I would say more of like recommendations to legislature. A lot of times they're limited term, type of things, but this one is more of it's different than anything that we work with before. So as Chris kind of mentioned, that there might be things that are dealt differently, with working with this commission in the future. So we'll just, bear with us. I mean, there's going to might be some changes, and there might need to be some changes with the commission too. But this is the way we'd like to handle this as the LCC then too. So.
Could I ask a question? Number one, highly evolved is not, it has never been applied to any group in MRPC that I can, of all the 10 states that I can think of. So that was very, very nice of you, Diane. Do we need to rethink whether we do drive month this year under these circumstances, rather than only do sort of halfway? I mean, I see some value to doing it so that Andrew sees it. On the other hand, with the maps coming out and with this transition and some of these, you spoke earlier, Diane, about resources, and we're making this transition. I want to give more oomph or whatever to making the transition well, rather than trying to just do a halfway job with the drive month and putting, I just throw out the question, should we just let it go for a year? I remember also I think is it DNR or Historical Society, somebody's out on leave, the person that was supposed to be doing that, that's another complication that we didn't foresee, but maybe it's better to wait and do them and have them do the 250 year rather than now.
I need an
I
update on that,
think
Chris.
that's a good, and Carol's got a comment too, but I think that's a good point. And we thought maybe there would be some meetings by now with the Historical Society. That hasn't happened due to the changes there or situations that you mentioned. So my thought at this point was to go ahead and promote the new Plan Your Trip for Drive Month this year and kind of keep it at that. And already started lifting things out of the new link to do that. Did I lose Carol? No, she's still there. And so, keep the basics, but keep them basic, and keep a news release and keep some presence with partners and some social media, Facebook posts, but focus them on Plan Your Trip and all these great categories within Plan Your Trip. And one of the categories is Minnesota Grown. Did you know you can find and just do a series of posts based on those categories? The content is largely there, and that would keep your visibility out there a little bit without being as maybe involved with a launch event and things that you've had the past few years. And Carol, I jumped in on you there. Oh, Carol had to jump out. So,
yeah. Wonder if they had another fire drill.
But that's my thought, Ann. I think at this point with the timeline, it would be difficult to pull off a full kind of outreach of gathering content from partners and all of those things. Yeah. So, yeah.
Chris, I wasn't aware that the Historical Society had an issue. They were not able to do it. So something
Well,
happened.
I think they were trying to do it,
Mhm.
but I remember at the last meeting, I think that's what David said was that,
Yeah.
and I couldn't remember who said it, but somebody said, the person who's supposed to be doing that is out on leave.
Yeah.
So that was, I was like, and then so this transition, I'd rather see us do the transition well, and not, worry about the other thing.
So David
Appreciate
said,
that, Anne. That's in my head a lot too, of how to juggle the time. Sorry,
I
Jen.
mean, that's a very important point. Does David know they're not, has he said they're not gonna do it this year now, so he knows that?
This is still floating a little bit. The last that it was left was that there might be a meeting like by yesterday, but that hasn't come together. So I mean, I think there's still interest there, but I'm not sure there's the capacity there right now, and we're at July 17th. So
That's what
they
I,
might, if they're ready to go forward with something, I think we would still welcome that if there's something packaged. But if it's not packaged, I think we might need to go another route at this point.
but should we
I
tell
would
them,
tell,
let them know that we would,
yeah,
that we've thought about this and the timing, since we haven't done anything, we know from experience that if you haven't done it by now, it's really not a good idea to try to scuttle it up. But it's better to, and say that the 2026 is we'd like to focus on the 250, and we could really use their help. That's
I
their
think that's perfect.
territory.
I like that. I
And
think
do
we should do that. Yep.
Let them know that, yeah.
Thanks. Because that is the rub, and thank you for calling it out, that, how much you keep trying to forge ahead versus put the time into trying to make the best transition that we can without letting things just drop either.
Right.
Yeah, I'd rather be intentional.
Well, and one other thing that Chris and I had talked about is that we do have a meeting set up with the interpretive centers as part of our, what do we call them?
Ambassadors.
Meeting.
Thank you, the ambassadors.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And so, but we were going to be, in addition to the updates, et cetera, that we would focus on that Drive Month with publicizing the new Plan Your Trip. And it is done now, which is great. It should be live pretty darn quick. And then we can show them how to use it.
Mhm.
I mean, if we can get that much accomplished in that meeting, and then that is our Drive Month and they know about it, we feel we've done good marketing for this year.
Mhm.
Good. Okay.
Just kind of anticipating that MHS may not be able to support it this year like we have in the past.
Sounds good. Thank you for that.
As far as like we talked about before with transition, that's a great point, Anne. Thanks for doing that too. But so the commission itself knows. First, we talked to the executive, the chair, the vice chair, and then the secretary of the commission itself, and let them know. And then the communication's been out to the commission. Then too, the next part would be stakeholders. Then too, we have some time on this one. We don't need to do anything right away, on it, but maybe something around the regional meetings, election time period, it might be appropriate time, to introduce Andrew and to start to siphon that. And Chris, you also have a lot of communications that come to you,
Yep.
that would need to transition
Yep.
then over, as well. So.
And I think we can start that at various times if you would be in agreement to things like Kara mentioned, the interpretive centers meeting. I don't know how many folks will get to come, but we usually send follow-up as well. Andrew is, I think, available that day and would be with us too, so we could do an introduction. And to those who are unable to attend, start with that group and start rolling it out to groups as we are working with them a little bit. And, maybe even can come up with a plan as to starting to, take my name down more and put Andrew's up a little more, while we're making this phased transition.
I can't remember. Chris, did you tell the national? Did you inform the
Yes.
national? Okay.
Yeah, I did. And I did ask Suzanne if she would copy Andrew on anything that she also is copying me on for now to start bringing him in on that. So yeah. Yep. And also understanding, as Diane has said, how things are now and how I've chosen to do them. There's a lot of better ways to do things. And so it might not look exactly the same moving forward. And I think there's a lot of benefit to that too. And as Diane said, LCC has internal capacities that we have not had recently. So that's, an opportunity for you, which is awesome.
So should we mock up a graphic with Andrew taking the pilot's wheel?
Yeah, that'd be fun. That'd be fun. Pilot's
Mark Twain
wheel.
look to him.
Absolutely. So more to come, as we move forward, but if I'll just let you know too, if there are some delays in responses from me, I'm not forgetting about you. I am just gone a bit these days. And so, I will get back to you. It just might be a little weird on timing and such as I'm moving along. So thank you for your patience.
Yeah. And I'd also encourage you to think about things that you could reach out to Andrew with instead of Chris, or CC Chris and direct your email to Andrew, and we'll work through this. So.
Well, and one example, and now Diane, I haven't talked with you about this, so I'm springing it on you right this minute. There's a quarterly meeting next month, and maybe that's one where you're still seeing things from me with Andrew copied, and then maybe we start moving for the November meeting that flips for the November meeting. So I'm still there in the background for that quarterly meeting if something's needed, but it's kind of transitioning before we're, formally out the door, if it in fact works that way. So.
And I want to thank
Just a
both
thought.
Andrew and Chris and Megan then too, with this is nice to have a nice transition period where we didn't have this before. When I first came to the LCC, we were with Carlson companies, Carlson Travel or something like that was the different.
Carlson Wagonlit.
Yeah. And then they stopped and then we sent out RFP, and very beneficial that Odyssey applied, and we looked at Odyssey then too. It was great, but Chris didn't have much of a transition period, and I was babe in the woods at that time, so we were both trying to figure out things. So it's very nice to have a nice transition period, and appreciate yours and yours, Chris, energies and allowing this to be a smooth transition. Hopefully it will be smooth.
Oh.
Absolutely. Thank you for all that help and discussion. I appreciate it. It helps me a lot. So again, thanks for the patience of all of you as we work this out. And yes, huge thanks to Diane, to Andrew, to Megan, to Michelle, to Yuki, to all the folks at LCC that are making this happen and prioritizing the commission. They are being really, really good stewards of the MRPC. So we're grateful for that. You're in good hands. Okay. Well, that said, is there other business as we're at about 5 minutes out here? World peace, something?
World
No?
be nice.
Okay, and thank you, John, for getting in to be the in-person rep.
Can I just ask a question, maybe of Diane? Is there any word on Senator Hoffman?
I don't have anything more than what's been in the public.
Yeah.
And two, that he was released, what was about a week ago
A week
or
ago,
so.
yeah. Okay, I
And
just
is
wanted
doing
to.
well. Yeah. He hasn't communicated with us at all. We are sending communications to him.
Okay.
Chris has been in communication with his legislative assistant on
Okay.
things then too, and we don't want to overwhelm him.
Oh, no. No, I just thought if you had anything that was
Yeah.
more.
Nothing more.
Last
No,
week.
nothing more. No.
Thanks.
I did
I
hear
will
that.
say, oh, go ahead, Jen. I
No,
will
I was
say
just
that
Go ahead.
Senator
Chris, you talk.
Housley and I, for the national MRPC meeting coming up in Baton Rouge, Senator Hoffman had indicated interest in attending, so he remains on our list for approval. Senator Housley and I decided to keep him on that list until he tells us otherwise. We are able to put in a substitution if that doesn't work out, but that list is now, the out-of-state travel paperwork is with Senator Housley. When it comes back, it'll go to LCC, and so we're keeping him on lists and in communications, as Diane said, until he or Cassie from his office tells us otherwise. Thanks. Sorry, John.
No, you're good, Chris. I was just gonna say that I talked to Colin Wellenkamp about the Mississippi River Cities and Towns Initiative meeting here. He's their director. He said they're dedicating the meeting to Senator Hoffman. So,
And that's in September.
yeah, that's a week after the Baton Rouge meeting.
Right.
And I also talked to him about the fact that Missouri started the Parkway Commission and they don't have a commission, and he should take a lead in trying to get that commission up and running. So he was very intrigued by that, and we may have some traction there.
Thank you, everybody. And Mr. Vice Chair, it's your call on whether you're hearing other business or you are ready to
I'm
adjourn.
not hearing, do we need a motion to adjourn? If so, I will take the motion and
So moved.
second, can I second my own motion?
Sure.
All in favor? Let's get out of here.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Have a
Have a
Take
great
care.
weekend, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I'm the one who's, we're the ones who gotta get out.